Hi everyone, welcome to our panel. We're so happy you're joining us today in the battle of the genres. So the way we usually start this panel, we ask how many people here like J-pop? How many people here like K-pop? Okay. How many people here think J-pop is better than K-pop? Okay. And how many people think K-pop is better than J-pop? Okay, we have some neutrals. Okay, so I like to do this before the panel starts because some people change their minds and we ask again after the panel is done. And some people convert. Yes. So, the way we're going to do, come in, yeah, no worries. Come in, we have cool music.
That's a seller, right?
So, I'm going to go ahead and introduce my friends. They're, honestly, in the community, they're one of the best music connoisseurs out there. Like, if you want to know anything about music, these guys are the guys to go to. And the way we're going to do it, I'm going to be devil's advocate on the K-pop side today, and I'm going to defend K-pop. My friend Manuel is going to defend J-pop, and my friend Greg is going to be, what did you say, Switzerland? He's going to be Switzerland in this. He's going to be the mediator because he knows a little bit of everything. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves. My name is Jen. I have a group that's called Infotakus. We just love the community so much and we like to do fun things with fun people. And we go to all the cons that we can. We promote the cons, we promote events, we go to events, we cover events. We're always posting goofy stuff on Facebook, news-related stuff, music-related stuff, and cosplay stuff, and all that kind of stuff. So we just like to hang out and chill with people and just, I like to talk a lot. So if you want to like talk to me about anything, like cosplay, anime, music, I can go on for hours. That's basically why I'm here, because I want to talk to you guys and with my friends. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves so you can get to know where they're from and all that fun stuff.
My name is Greg Pignite, and I am a J-pop and K-pop DJ and promoter and event producer. Also like doing live shows, working with bands, that kind of thing.
And my name is Manuel. I lead a website known as A to J Connections. We are a Japanese culture website, but we mainly cover music. We have everything, interviews, reviews, all sorts of awesome stuff. Check us out. We also go to lots of conventions all throughout the U.S. Yeah, over here, thumbs down. You were on a panel of ours last night. You were leading the panel. Anyway, we go to conventions everywhere. We do panels everywhere. We have one later on at 4 today, and we have one again tomorrow. So check us out.
Woohoo! Okay. So we try to make this educational too because that's the rule. We just can't talk random stuff. So I'm gonna start with J-pop. I got into K-pop because of J-pop. Isn't that ironic? I was on YouTube, I want to say 9 years ago, trying to find J-pop videos, right? And that's not gonna happen, that was really hard. And then I ended up stumbling upon K-pop, and I spent the whole day watching K-pop videos. So I ironically got into K-pop because of J-pop. I used to live in Guatemala where internet was like a privilege, so you really couldn't download stuff like you could here. Back in the day, you could download torrents. My husband used to tell me that he used to download millions and millions of torrents. All these people sharing music and stuff in the early 2000s. So I didn't have access to J-pop. My only access to J-pop was anime openings and endings. That was it. That's all I got in Guatemala. That's it. That's all you get over there. So I got into J-pop because of K-pop. I got into K-pop because of J-pop. I confused the two. So then I started realizing the rise of K-pop, and I stopped listening to J-pop because J-pop wasn't producing anything for me. And I got curious as to why that was happening, and I started asking people around, like, why do you think this is happening? Blah, 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 and that's why this panel is happening. So we're going to start with some pointers. I'm going to have the guys give their opinions about why they think this is happening. I went online and I read what netizens, because because everything is online these days, right? So I read what netizens were talking about, why they thought K-pop was better than J-pop and vice versa. There's still some fierce J-pop advocates that believe in the future of J-pop, and it'll have a revival at some point. I'm still waiting. Like, come on, J-pop, where are you? So my only hope is Perfume. I'm gonna start with some pointers, and the guys are gonna tag along on that. Got it? Okay. So I can speak. Okay. So we're gonna start saying why J-pop is better than K-pop. So some netizens think that J-pop is better than K-pop because K-pop does not offer variety. They say K-pop all sounds the same.
Well, let me preface everything I'm gonna say and everything that will continue on. I'm really not anti-K-pop, so anti-K-pop. So let's not go to think that I'm gonna be all militant about K-pop. But I do. That statement's a bit broad because I do think there's a lot of variation in K-pop, but J-pop does have a huge branching, scope in terms of genre in and of itself. You look at the groups like Perfume, which are a bit more electronic, a bit more dance-ish. Then you have the idol groups, AKB48. You really want to think about them. You have that, and then you have male idol groups, who are a whole different monster of themselves, and you have all sorts of other genres in there.
I think the fundamental difference is that K-pop is largely built on an electro-hop foundation. It's kind of a similar sound, or you get ballads too that are sort of and that sort of trot kind of influence that all of it came from. So it's fairly focused on the musical spectrum. While J-pop is kind of two things, really, depending on who you ask. It's either a catch-all for all sort of mainstream Japanese music, which does represent a really rich variety of different styles. You have jazz, pop, rock, electronic, all kinds of stuff going on. But also there is sort of this idea of J-pop as a specific genre if you look at the 90s, and that's the sound that you can associate with artists like Namie Amuro, all the Avex artists, Globe, Kodakumi. That was definitely along a sort of a very specific musical style, and some people, and Hikaru Utada, people kind of consider that as a musical form, they consider that J-pop.
Okay, so but you don't think J-pop has become stagnant, boring? It's not really offering anything? Do you think it's something people could get into as easily as K-pop?
I see there is a bit of an argument you could say it's kind of stagnated a bit in terms of originality, but I think that kind of goes to a lot of other music fields as well. It definitely, I don't think it's as import friendly. A lot of as much of it is anymore. Because a lot of it's a bit more, it's a bit more domestic for domestic release, at least in terms of some of the sound. A lot of groups who tour the U.S. do it at much smaller venues, mainly because, and there's a lot of other reasons behind this, mainly because the music isn't as accessible. Sometimes that's just outright because, for whatever reason, the label doesn't make it as accessible. At the very beginning of the panel, Jennifer mentioned having trouble watching videos on YouTube and finding other songs. That is still a problem to this day, because a lot of labels won't, for whatever reason, there's lots of hard to explain reasons, but they won't show their videos in the US. They're blocked here. A lot of huge companies, Pony Canyon. I mentioned AKB48, you can't watch any of the 48G videos here. Lots of other companies do this too. Avex does it every so often, for some of their artists. Sony does it a lot. And so a lot of people are exposed to this stuff. And I think that's a problem.
I think if you look at the music shows in Japan right now, if you look at Music Station, the countdown shows, I would say that this is not a scientific appraisal, but it definitely is not maybe as rich as it has been in other years. But at the same time, you still see a greater variety of music represented, I think, on the Japanese top 40 shows than you see here in the United States.
That is true. Everything's subjective, but there's a lot of genres, but I do feel there's not anything too particularly new, but because there's such a huge variety, I think that you could definitely find something to really love if you really delve into J-pop in general.
Yeah, I still think J-pop does not offer the variety that I find in K-pop. K-pop definitely I feel like they play with the music genres more. They play with R&B, they play with hip hop, they play with electronica, they play with all these kinds of rhythms, and they're taking advantage of, I guess, how they can attract people's attention with those different genres. J-pop, to me, I can't name you a band apart from Perfume right now that I like that's J-pop that I can like relate to, or I don't know. I used to be able to do that more often a couple of years ago, like Ikimono Gakari, they were really hot, you know, Asian Kung Fu Generation. Like I could find a different group or artist in each genre in J-pop that I could like and relate to, but lately I can't. And in K-pop, I have a favorite girl group, I have a favorite boy group, I have a favorite ballad singer, I have a favorite rapper, I have a favorite, I don't know. So that's why J-pop, they're saying J-pop doesn't offer variety. Other people say J-pop does offer variety because it's more unique. Some people say that J-pop even uses classical music more than K-pop does. They play with instruments better. So
it's funny. She mentions that instruments better. They use instruments better. One of the things I'm really obsessed with right now with like Japanese pop music in the past 10 years or so, and I'm pretty sure Greg has noticed this too, is that a lot of pop music, Japanese pop music, has been using strings a lot more, and you get or just a sole violin that's randomly in a song. And it's just like, I find that so amazing. The violin, I want to write an article on it one day, like the violin in Japanese pop music, idol music, all the pop music right now, it's really big. It's like an unspoken boom that nobody talks about. Like I've noticed so much. I'm like, where does violin come from in the past like 6-7 years? You noticed it? Yeah. But nobody, I bet you people think, you're right, there's violin in a lot of songs. Like, it's a new thing, and I think it's really cool. But I think what's also kind of fundamentally different between, well, to a degree, especially modern J-pop, so to speak, is that some of the big groups from the 90s and whatnot, a lot of them, or the 80s, 90s that are still around, a lot of them are kind of releasing almost like safe material, I feel, for lack of a better way to describe it. It's like they're releasing stuff that's, of their own sound. So, and they're still releasing, they're still on the top 10, in Oricon and whatnot. And some of the newer groups, a lot of the newer groups like fall under like, they're usually like what you would call idols, That's a whole other topic. But idols in K-pop and idols in J-pop are hugely different because K-pop is a lot more polished and produced, whereas J-pop, J-pop idols, part of the fun and part of like what people like them is they're meant to not be polished and produced. You're meant to they're meant to be raw and you're meant to like see them grow. And then pretty much when they're really hitting that peak, it's like, oh, okay, now you can go off into your real career and do something else, either act, model, or sing, also. So there's a fundamental difference, I think, also that makes that, if you're into one, you might not be into the other.
okay, so don't kill me, but I tried to watch an AKB48 concert and I fell asleep. I was like, what? And to me, it all felt the same. But I asked somebody else that was watching a K-pop concert, I guess, and to them, they felt it was the same. And that takes me to my next point that I wanted to talk about. People say J-pop is better than K-pop because they say K-pop is too artificial. They say K-pop is manufactured. They say K-pop has no feeling. They say K-pop is just a bunch of little robots dancing and singing. Whereas they say J-pop has all the feels. And they say K-pop does not have that. And I disagree strongly on that. But I'm gonna let the guys elaborate on that.
I would say that both industries are both highly, highly manufactured and also highly full of real talent and real hard work. It's both the idol industry, which I think you really can't talk about Japanese music without talking about idol anymore. It's such a big, influential part of the industry. They're not ubiquitous, but it's a pretty big chunk. The idol industry is no different from K-pop in regard to the system, but that I think the fundamental difference in the way I see this in some people is they use manufactured as a dismissive quantification. They say, well, it's manufactured, so therefore it's not authentic. But manufactured just means there's a system involved. Obviously, it's very heavily produced and orchestrated, but all music is. And anybody who tells you, oh, this band writes their own songs, you know, they don't do that by themselves. They've got producers, they've got songwriters, they've got management, they've got all these different pieces of the puzzle. Now, that's not to diminish the talent of an authentic, actual musician who plays an instrument, who sings, who is their own songwriter. You know, a lot of these idol groups, whether you're talking K-pop or J-pop, they do depend on an army of people to make it possible, and it may not be possible for that artist to just sit down in a room with a microphone and sing. But honestly, a lot of them can.
Yeah.
And so all of the smoke and mirrors, the beautiful lights, and the, you know, the choreography and the flashy music videos, behind that is a real performer who can sing, who can dance, and who can, you know, really, you know, they're a bona fide artist.
Yeah, and I don't think like Greg mentioned, I don't think either is any more or less manufactured than the other. There is a bit more training involved, more polish involved, especially like, you know, at the end on the K-pop side, there's a lot more like lead up. But they both, you know, they both come from an open audition. They both picked for, you know, certain qualities. In most groups, you know, even if you're a soloist, you usually go to an audition and you're picked for a certain quality. Usually that's not always your singing or dancing ability. You know, it's your charisma, what have you. But like Greg said, at the end of the day, there's a lot of amazing performers. We did a panel on BIS last night, and there's a group, an idol group now known as Bish, which is the continuation. And one of their members, her name's Aina, I seriously think is like the best J-pop vocalist right now in Japan, active right now. You know Aina, man. She's amazing. Like, check out Bish, and you'll hear a really amazing vocalist. And I really, really hope that when Bish ends, she sings solo and she goes on from there. But I don't know. I think there's no more or less soul in either. They're both rich, I think. I
think, you know, you talked earlier about how J-pop, or maybe more specifically, idols don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
And to elaborate on that, idol music is sort of designed to be aspirational.
Yes.
And so there is, you will hear vocals and you're like, I'm not so sure this woman is the best singer, right? But that's only part of the, you know, cheering for someone and wanting to see them grow and become more popular as an idol is actually part of the commercialization of the industry. While K-pop is different. K-pop operates from that kind of confidence that we expect in American music, and I think it's why K-pop resonates with American fans a lot. There's that swagger, right? There's that swagger in K-pop that you just can't beat.
And a lot of people criticize AKB48. One of their main selling points when they first formed was they were releasing the concept that they're idols you could beat. So they were never meant to be this unattainable, you know, thing. They're meant to be like, oh, you can be friends with them, you can go meet them and talk to them.
But there's so many.
But that's another thing. No, that is a huge. We have a panel on AKB48. We're not doing it here, but there's over 100 members in AKB48, and it's ridiculous. But you're meant to like focus in on a couple. Like if you're in the fandom, you're meant to do that. I don't know why. You know, it's really. I don't know why they have so many. I don't know why they focus in, but like it's just. I don't know.
How many people here follow AKB48? Okay.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
There's so many.
There's actually a really good, legitimate reason why they started with 48 women. And it's because they were supposed to be performance-based.
Yeah.
And they have this theater in Akihabara, the original theater, and so they were divided up into 3 teams of 16 members so they could rotate performances every 3 days, so it would be very likely that a fan could actually go see them live. So there's actually a super specific reason why they started with that number.
And now they just have a lot more than 48.
I don't know. I think I like K-pop because you can choose your bias, who's your favorite in the group, and you can identify with that person. And I don't know. I feel like there's a more connection with K-pop idols in a sense that they're chosen very specifically because they each have a different type of personality, and they're just like a character type of person. And I can keep track of them, I can keep track of their names, although if it goes over more than 7, I can't. Like if the member has more than 7, or like I can't keep, I still confuse Girls' Generation all the time. And my sister's like, that's Taeyong, and I'm like, I know who Taeyong is now because she's a solo singer, but before I couldn't keep track of them because there was too many. If you have to make me think that much, I lose interest, like that. I just can't, I can't deal. So I think I like K-pop because you can connect. I feel like I can connect more with the K-pop idols than with J-pop idols. They look like little robots. They're just like, and they look the same. Okay, moving on. is better than K-pop because K-pop is not original. K-pop stole sound, music, fashion sense, style from the Western culture. J-pop didn't do that. J-pop didn't have to do that to survive.
Well, to be honest, like I think a lot of popular music the world over has borrowed from Western culture. One thing to point out, a huge difference between the Korean music market and the Japanese music market is the size. Japan is the second largest music market in the world after the US. And I think Korea is like the 6th or the 7th. So like there's a huge difference in how many artists there are to begin with. I do feel that there's a lot, well I guess you can't really argue that. I was going to argue that there's a lot more traditional elements in some Japanese pop music. You have like Inca type elements. You also have trot, I guess, in Korean. So, but you mentioned earlier, I think that you get J-pop and it's a bit more open to incorporating and trying out other genres within the same group. You don't see that often in K-pop. A lot of K-pop is usually, each group is usually of a certain sound and they continue that way. Once again, going back to idols, they're so like, they're so huge, especially today with J-pop, is a lot of idol groups will have a song that's like a ska inspired song, a song that's a jazz inspired song, a song that's an Inca inspired song, a song that's just straight up, J-pop, and so on. And you don't see that much in a group that will go to such drastic differences within a single release cycle. You don't see that as often. I think that's a bit more. But I do think they're all kind of borrowing from Western influences.
Yeah, I agree. Music as all culture, it's transmitted, it's shared, it's diffused, and influences come, from without and within.
Exactly.
And I think it's really just, again, it's the idea that the K-pop sound is more focused in on some certain musical genres. I will defend any music movement that is accused though of like stealing or borrowing, because people have been making that argument about rock and roll here for 80 years, that rock and roll was stolen from blues.
Yeah.
So it's no different.
That's true. Ow! Okay. J-poppers say that K-pop is just a fade, and it's going to eventually go away, and J-pop will remain victorious after K-pop goes away.
I don't think K-pop is going anywhere anytime soon. I think K-pop is safely entrenched. But it is fair to say that as far as the world market, and Japanese market, and especially the US market, that K-pop is a lot more of a newer thing. We've had crossover with Japanese artists like a very long time back. There was name escapes me who did it, but Sukiyaki was the song, was the top 40 hit, I should say, in like the 50s and 50s. And then of course we had Pink Lady in the 70s, and we had other artists who attempted, usually not very well, but there's been crossover. And there's been a lot of exchange between the two music markets. Korea's a bit different for a lot of reasons that we probably won't go into, but the Korean pop scene is a lot newer as far as how, what it is today. So I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. I don't think it's a phase per se. I think its level of popularity is kind of a bit more of a fad, for lack of a better term. Because it's so hot right now, and there's so much cross production, especially with U.S. Producers, U.S. artists, and whatnot. So I don't think it's going to disappear, but I do think the popularity will die down, as time goes on.
All musical movements are bad, and it's crazy to think, but we're now about 7 years in from the beginning of the Hallyu, the Korean wave.
Yeah.
And musical scenes, especially like youth music scenes, have about a 3-year lifespan before everybody kind of ages out and gets into other things. So that's already a couple generations of K-pop fans. I would really argue that K-pop's big surge is probably over, but that doesn't mean the growth is over. Because the whole K-pop industry was built in the last 6 or 7 years to promote globally in a way that J-pop, to this day, has not. And so the longevity and the permutation is probably there, that K-pop is available and accessible all over the world. It's a part of a lot of people's lives. And so whether or not there's things going on that are particularly exciting right now, I think the fandom is pretty much locked in a way that's probably stronger than J-pop. But I think Manuel's point is really good, that J-pop, as popular music, has really been a thing for 30 or 40 years, while Korean pop scene has only been around for about 20.
Yeah, it's interesting that you guys mentioned the timeline, because I was just thinking about that yesterday in my K-pop 101 panel. I was like, I've been a K-pop fan since 2008. It's 2016, and I still like it. But I've been listening to J-pop since I was like 10.
Yeah.
So, and I'm 30, so you guys make the math. Don't make the math. So, yeah, longevity-wise, yeah, J-pop definitely has been entrenched in me ever since I heard Sailor Moon's opening when I was 10 years old. So, you know, I think it's been around. I definitely think it's been around longer. I don't want K-pop to go away, so I try to convert everybody to K-popism. But yes, you also bring up another term, which is my next point, that J-pop is better because it's more exclusive. It's not like, basically J-popers have said on the internet that K-pop has become like generic because it's so accessible. Like you can find it on YouTube, and that makes it like uncool. Whereas J-pop is more exclusive. You have to buy the DVDs, you have to buy the CDs to watch the concerts, you have to buy the stuff. So J-popers are more considered more hardcore because they actually have to spend money to watch the exclusive stuff that idols and the groups have. Whereas K-pop is everywhere. You can just find it anywhere.
You know, that's actually a very good point. It's actually something I mentioned to certain friends of mine. And mind you, this is something I don't really like. Someone just mentioned it, so I'll preface that what I'm about to say. I love a lot of I've been getting into a lot of new idol groups specifically. And by the way, there's a new kind of, the traditional idol group of AKB48 isn't quite as popular. The popularity is definitely diminishing. The whole 48G monster is over 1,000 girls right now worldwide. It's ridiculous. So it's kind of becoming its own thing, kind of like almost folding into itself. There's almost a new movement right now in the idol J-pop scene where you have like the more extreme, like J-pop, think baby metal, and like think Finnish, the group you mentioned earlier. There's a lot of groups like that. There's a lot of smaller ones. Anyway, I've been getting into a lot of these groups, but it's really hard to get into them because a lot of them will release material that you can only purchase at their lives, that you can only purchase on their website, that you can only purchase through certain obscure, other websites. It's ridiculous. And some of them want to be known in the U.S. and they reach out to certain people about wanting to be known, but yet they still have there's still a huge barrier where, it's like, there's certain things that K-pop does way better in terms of accessibility. There's a lot more information in English. There's a lot, the YouTube thing we mentioned. I remember talking, I won't say who and I won't say the label, I remember talking to an artist, management, and they were asking me, like, how can we make the artist more known? And I'm like, their videos are blocked on YouTube, right? And they were like, oh yeah, we want them not to be blocked, but the label wants them blocked. So I'm like, I was shocked to hear that. I'm like, the management wants it to be known, but the label can block it. And I'm like, that just threw me for a loop. I'm like, well, honestly, that's the biggest thing. And I told them that, like, you have to get the videos unblocked, because that's the way most anyone in the US gets to know these groups is through YouTube. And it's super hard. I can't, we mentioned Bish, and we mentioned Biz. Biz recently reformed. Their new music is blocked in the US. And I kind of refuse to listen to it because I'm like, people always like to use their fans. There's ways to go around it. I'm like, yeah, that's not the point. The point is, like, it shouldn't be that obscure. It shouldn't be that hard to get into. So that's actually a point that I don't like. So I will jump on the K-pop bandwagon there, and like that they're doing it the right way. And I do think that J-pop would be a lot more bigger if certain steps were taken to emulate some of the good things that you see in other fields like K-pop.
Okay, there we go. Now, as a member of the music industry, I love idol fans because they put their money where their mouth is. They spend money on the CDs, on the merchandise. They're great loyal music fans. They don't just try to torrent everything, which is lovely. But on the other hand, K-pop, you don't have that problem because if there's a new song that comes out that you want to get, you just go to iTunes and it's there.
Exactly.
And this is a big issue that I think, and I like you, I wish that the Japanese industry was a little bit more progressive on in having that available, because then that people see the video, right? New K-pop single comes out, HD, glorious HD on YouTube. You get excited, and then if you really if you like the artist enough, you'll go and you spend $1.29 on iTunes and you got it.
Yeah.
And the artist makes money.
Yeah, I don't use iTunes. That's why I didn't make that argument. That's a huge thing. So many things you can't get on iTunes, and like, or it's in the Japanese iTunes, you have to buy like, you know, a Japanese iTunes card, make up a fake address and all that crazy fake, you know, iTunes account. And the stuff you have to do to be a J-pop fan is ridiculous sometimes. Ridiculous. But yeah, iTunes is huge, YouTube is huge. I wish that they got more on that, you know.
Now I don't like that sort of elitism though, that, you know, our fandom's better because we're into something that's like more obscure or you know, harder to get.
Oh, you get that a lot.
Yeah, I think, you know, you're into music either because you love it or because of your identity, and that's fine. But I'm always a little bit, I have kind of an aversion to those people who think that they're cooler than everyone else.
I love music in general.
And also you can find K-pop on Spotify now.
Oh yeah.
Big companies like YG Entertainment, SM Entertainment, it's all there, free. It's amazing. I try to find a J-pop artist on Spotify, and Spotify's like, what the hell's wrong with you? What are you looking for? Spotify is like, although the only ones that are doing this, and then I hope will be the beacon of progress for J-pop is Perfume.
Yes.
You can find Perfume on Spotify. All their albums are on Spotify. You can find Perfume on iTunes, and you can see their videos on YouTube, which is amazing because I never get tired of watching them. But they also expanded into the U.S. and they realized that to expand into the U.S. they had to open all their media. You know, they have an Instagram now. They have a legit Instagram. Perfume has an Instagram. That's amazing. That to me. So I wish more J-pop artists would embrace that, and they would get so many more fans.
As a really small aside though, about like some of the more independent like groups and smaller idol groups, what I do love about them is if you go on their Twitter and you like tweet to them or something, more often than not they reply to you. And it's just really cool. It's really cool. So I will say that. But you know, if you tweet to like or you comment on someone's Instagram post like a really huge artist, you won't get that often. But you know, it does happen.
I don't care.
I don't care.
I don't care. Although I will say this, my friend, there was a Perfume's 11th anniversary just happened, and my friend, who's a graphic designer, created art because they had a contest of creating art for the anniversary. They were picking the best ones, and my friend Kalu, actually, her art got chosen. And they posted her art on their Instagram, and they gave a shout out to her, like to her Instagram, like, thank you to @Kalu for your art, it's amazing. And Kalu almost died. She literally almost died. And she was like, damn, is this a real life? And I'm like, yes, it's real life. This is happening. So that was pretty cool. So I hope they can find a medium, like find a way to keep the fans happy and also expand a little bit more. So yeah, so all right, our next point that we're going to go into is K-pop artists are more talented than J-pop artists. Shots fired. That's what they think.
Oh, shots fired.
Okay, so let's go, guys.
Okay, I already mentioned earlier, I don't think that, you know, the talent pool on either side is at the core level is really any better or worse than the other. I already mentioned that K-pop in and of itself is a bit more polished, a bit more produced, with a bit more lead time, prep time into some of these groups who, when they finally make their first release, that you don't see too often. Because of course you do get that on the J-pop side as well. You don't see as often. I mentioned already some of my favorite vocalists. I mentioned Aina, and I mentioned actually Kodaku's amazing too. There's a lot of amazing talent on either side. I don't think that's a fair statement either way. I think it goes back to what Greg was saying, the elitism that you get from some fans. I just think that there'll always be people who will say one side's better than the other. And I mentioned already that I love music, so I don't really like, you know, that shit. I think it's fair. I think there's really good vocalists on J-pop. I mean, of course, if you grab AKB48 to do a single and you listen to like the lead track, you probably won't find anything too stand out. But that's not really a totally fair comparison to all that J-pop has to offer, I think. And that's kind of what I think a lot of people go into.
Each musical movement has its strengths. K-pop, again, has a lot of parity with the US performance style. And so we have really strong, tight, aggressive dance moves, you know, informed by like jazz funk and hip hop style dancing. So you see a technicality with the K-pop dancers you don't see so much in Japan. There's definitely Japanese artists who are at that level. Kodakumi, you know, she's been around for a while, but you know, she could dance like nobody's business. And you know, everybody in the E-Girls family, you know, Dream and Happiness, they're also very heavily like an American influence dance style. And then another artist who I think are fantastic dancers in Japan, but of a very different variety of femme. We love femme, and you know, their whole shtick is that they're mannequins. And so they have this like, sort of like really cool robotic dance style, but their choreography is amazing.
I know.
Right? Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah. I think maybe strengths that maybe differentiate J-pop from K-pop is getting back to that sort of more universal richness of the musical performance. You're more likely to see in J-pop, you're more likely to see someone who might be a guitarist, right?
Exactly.
I think Ikimono Gakure is a really good example. There are bands in Korea that are like them for sure, but an artist like that, I think if you want to say, well, what's strong or what's unique about J-pop, you look at Ikimono Gakure, right? Or a band like End of the World, Sekai no Owari, or Gesu no Owari no Otomo, like, you know, they're all like bona fide bands, and you know, compose their own music, and I think that's definitely true.
Yeah. No, I love both very much, but J-pop did give me Calafina, which makes me cry like a baby. I listen to Calafina, or anything Yuki Kajura-san does, I'm moved to tears. So those girls can sing like nobody's business, and they can harmonize, and they can, Jesus, make me feel like so many feelings. I haven't found something like that in K-pop that can make me feel like that, like Calafina does, or just, again, that like very intense, deep emotional connection. So yeah, no, I will give J-pop props there. They really value talent, and you know, in a very different way than K-pop does. K-pop, you have to, if you want to be an idol, I think they do they have like a checklist. So when you go into like a company in K-pop, they're like, are you pretty? Check. Can you dance? Check. You can't dance, but you're pretty? We'll see if we can fix it. Can you sing? Check. Are you smart? Check. If not, we can fix that too. So it's kind of like they're like, you know, in Japan, I don't think that's the case. It's usually people that get together, they have a lot of creative juices flowing, and they're like, okay, let's do this. A lot of stuff in Japan, I think, happen as projects. You know, they get together and they're like, let's try to make this work, and then it expands into something more. And it's, you know, K-pop, there's a checklist. You have to meet something in the checklist, and if you don't meet it, they'll fix it for you. But you have to be pretty, that for sure. Oh no, they can fix that too. They do surgery, right? Yeah, they do surgery. They're like, yeah, no, they're fine. They can fix that too. They can fix that too, but I don't care. It's amazing. So let's move on to the next one. The next point is K-pop is just better production-wise. They are more invested in making it look good. They're more invested in the quality. They're more invested in just bringing it at home, like home run all the way. Whereas J-pop, not so much.
Well, I spent most of this whole panel discussing the difference in their production. So I do think, in a general sense, broadly speaking, that K-pop is almost universally better produced. That doesn't mean that that J-pop isn't. It's just that you run more of the gamut, more of the spectrum of, you know, production quality. And I mean, and we're still talking big groups. There's some groups that are really big that are in the top 10 in the Oricon charts that still, you listen to the song and it's like the track doesn't sound that good. The video is really weak. The video being weak is actually really, really inexcusable, I think, because that's the way most people see it and hear it for the first time, especially if it's overseas. But you look at a K-pop video, and usually across the board, there's of course a couple, but usually across the board, the production quality is a lot more sharp, a lot more put together, just in general, both in terms of visual and audio quality. So I do think that they do have a bit of the upper hand sometimes. And let's also go back to the fact that in the US, a lot of times you just can't even watch that video at all, okay? For J-pop.
You know, all the big K-pop producers, you Brave Sound, JYP, Teddy, I love Teddy. I love,
And now
absolutely
Tableau,
love.
because Tableau's producing now a bunch of stuff too now.
And of course, the videos themselves, they're really designed to sell the artist. That's
Oh, yeah.
that's the thing about K-pop videos. They're not always necessarily creative in the sense that there's a lot of narrative story going on or anything. It's like, here's the beautiful set, here's the artist, here's the disco lights. But then it's totally effective though. Like I'm not going to name the artists here, but most K-pop videos, you're going to know who each member is. You're going to be like, wow, here's everybody here. They're lined up perfectly. They've all got their solo part in the video. There's a major label Japanese artist that one of the recent videos, like, they were kind of blocking each other in the choreography, and you couldn't quite see who it was. And I was just like, you can do better than this.
No,
And this is why K-pop is winning the video battle. But I'm talking videos. As far as production, there's an extremely a high sense of detail, obsessive detail in Japanese production as well. So I don't think that necessarily musically, from an engineering side, one is better than the other. But again, that whole K-pop sound and look is such a tight, well-oiled, focused, like electro-hot machine that it's like you were saying with the checklist with the performers. I think the checklist is also there with the music production and the video production as well.
I like how you bring, because I used to think that K-pop, the producers were obsessed with like perfection, but J-pop producers are also obsessed with perfection. A good example of this is Daichi Mura. Daichi is like, he's a musical genius, and I was watching one of the few videos I could find about him, about his production style, and he was like, I do not leave the studio until I know this is perfect. And then they were like, well, how long is that? And he's like, however long it takes. I've stayed in the studio for like 2 days straight. I would just go to the bathroom and then I would come back. And I was like, But he was very like, intense about the perfection of the production. So and Japanese music is beautiful. Like, it's just J-pop and others, even J-rock, it sounds so polished sometimes, but yet so raw at the same time. Like, it's trippy to me. And but whereas K-pop always sounds polished. K-pop is like, you know what you're gonna get, and if you don't get it, you can go online and complain about it, and they'll probably hear you because netizens are insane, and they will be heard.
What I do think is also different between K-pop and J-pop is that in J-pop you have a bit more of an indie underground scene, which you don't see to any same extent in Korean pop music. In J-pop, it's still J-pop, and you still release stuff to usually big numbers, but it's indie. AKB48 was an indie artist for a very long time before they became major. Morning Musume started as indie. All these other huge artists started as indie before they went to major labels. You don't see that as often in K-pop, which I think is a huge difference in production value too. You get the lower end production, which still isn't bad, but you get the lower end production sound in J-pop a lot more, I think, which, like I said, like Jen said too, you get more across the board, usually across the board, polished.
So let's go on with our next point. And we're going to talk about it again, that K-pop is more marketable than J-pop. K-pop idols are not only trained to act, sing, dance, because K-pop idols, some of them are also actors, actresses, models. You have to know how to do all these things. They also learn other languages. They learn English. If they're going to be in Japan promoting, they learn Japanese, they learn Chinese. They're told from the very beginning, we're going to be touring you around the world, so you need to step it up. That's basically, so they're basically programming them to be marketable. The K-pop is just more marketable across the board.
I'll take this one.
Yeah, this is a good point to make.
It depends on what market you're talking about. Fundamental difference between J-pop and K-pop is that the Japanese market is very strongly domestic focused and turned inward to Japan. Japan has a population of 160 million plus people, so that's 2/3 of the United States. South Korea is a much smaller country.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the South Korean music industry is turned outward. and there's government money behind it. I mean, there's government money behind, you know, Japanese music promotion too, but really, those, you know, there is, but K-pop artists are being simultaneously prepared for the South Korean market and also the global market. And, you know, you're right, you know, they're doing TV, they're doing all kinds of stuff. It's very much like Disney. I always compare K-pop to the way that Disney performers are groomed as actors, as singers, as personalities.
Yeah.
While Japan, most of that energy is going into strictly domestic, because it's the same thing there. You know, there's a term talento, and you know, talento is someone who does all of these things too. And it's a little bit more. You kind of have to sort of graduate into being a talento in Japan, while you know, in Korea, everyone's prepared like as a, you know, an entertainment weapon system basically. Yeah. While in Japan, it's more that with the younger performers, they reach a certain stage where they can sort of live on their own apart from their group or their idol group or whatever, and they're like, okay, now they're going to start doing talk shows, they're going to start acting. So it's something to kind of ease into. Yeah. Would you agree?
I would agree. Talking about globalization and, you know, marketing outside of the U.S., I think that there's J-pop artists in general are kind of slow to the game. For whatever reason, like knowing English in general, I don't mean just the artists, I mean amongst the management, seems to be a lot slower, you know, like they don't sort of grasp it like they need to, you know, a lot of cases. Some artists like will publish things that are subtitled, that are translated in English, and the English translations aren't good at all. And I mean stuff that a native English speaker would just skim through it and fix immediately. I don't mean anything crazy, I mean like very obvious things. You all know what I'm talking about. The English mistakes, all that kind of stuff. So I think there's that. But there's other artists, like we interviewed a group called Wasta, the World Standard recently, and one of their huge things, they're trying to become like the world standard of like idols, Japanese pop music. And each member is learning a foreign language. There's somebody learning Chinese, somebody learning French, somebody learning English. And we had Tokyo Performance Doll who were at J-Pop Summit, and then we had Mori Musume who was at Anime Matsuri earlier this year. And both of them have very fluent English speakers, so in their lineup. So I think they're slow to the game, but it's getting there a bit.
Yeah, and I like how you talk about how they're learning English, because I went to see Big Bang for the second time. They all speak English. All 5 members speak English. Some of them better than others. I think definitely G-Dragon and Taeyang and Seungri are the best English speaker ones. Top would go like, yeah. That's right. Yeah.
That's all you need.
But he was still engaging with the fans. He was like, go. That's what he would say. It was like amazing. But they all speak English. K-pop has English words in their songs, so I think that's what attracted America. Like I would say, fantastic baby, and then I would go, la 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 Korean, la la la, fantastic baby, la 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 Korean, la la la. But I didn't realize what was going on there. But that's how I would sing the songs, okay? Because I only knew the English part. I could only say the English part. And sometimes when I want to like sing a Japanese song, I feel stupid because I would have to like learn, first of all, how to pronounce everything, which is sometimes easier for me because I know Spanish, so the Spanish sound and the vowels are similar to Japanese, so I was like, okay, I got it. Yeah, no, that's true. But it was easier for me, but I still felt dumb like singing in Japanese because there was like no connection. I felt for me. But K-pop, I sing it and I'm like, okay, I can sing the English part fervently, and then I'll figure out the rest.
And K-pop has it too, where they occasionally do the bad translation. But J-pop does it far worse. Well, across the board. Of course, sometimes it's perfect. But J-pop does incorporate English sometimes, and sometimes it's to questionable results.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah.
So we're going to start wrapping up. We're going to take some questions if anybody has some questions, and then we will ask again at the end if anybody thinks they like J-pop more than K-pop. So anybody have any questions? Oh God.
It's a discussion of like hip-hop within the two.
He's my
as kind of a
husband, just
subsection.
ignore.
But where hip-hop is filled,
Oh yeah, that's a good
like
one.
where you see one being stronger.
Hip-hop is definitely, I think we can all agree across the board here that hip-hop is definitely much stronger in K-pop. It exists in J-pop, don't get me wrong, and there's even like idol groups and pop groups that incorporate it into their songs occasionally, but it's
But it
not.
sounds weird when
Yeah,
you
it
do
does.
it.
I mean, there's times I like it, but there are times when I'm like, I don't know. It's definitely a lot stronger in K-pop, and that's I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
It's what? I am somewhat familiar thanks to our translator Tiffany, who's like really well, both of you. But yeah, I'm getting into it. I'm getting into it to answer your question. And it's definitely, I think it's kind of my new thing right now. Slowly, it's going to be my new obsession.
So you're planning to go to Japan and do the whole thing?
Oh, I just came back from Japan not that long ago, and I intend to go back and hopefully do a lot more fun stuff, like go to concerts and like be as a fan. Because a lot of times I go to places and I end up working. So.
Right over here in the red.
Yeah, you mentioned that sometimes the studios are the ones that are blocking the videos for the J-pop. Have you heard any good reason why? It seems counterintuitive. Like, why would you want to get them into the Western market?
Sure, there's actually a specific reason. It's because the Japanese market is focused on domestic, and that includes CD and DVD sales.
Yeah.
And because physical media has not taken the hit in sales that it has most places in the world, in Japan, people still buy CDs and DVDs. And so, this is one of the reasons. It's not the explanation for everything. But the labels and management companies see that music video still as a commodity as opposed to being a promotional tool. They want people to buy that limited CD-DVD bundle when the release comes out, and they think if you put it up on HD for free on YouTube, you're undercutting sales.
Yeah, there's people, I remember the argument for the longest time is there's a huge label that does more use Hello Project, where they would upload their videos, but they wouldn't put them in HD. And the explanation was that they didn't want people to download those because they sell those videos too. Those videos are usually sold either as collections or on a special edition of the CD, like Greg mentioned. That artist who I mentioned, I won't mention who they are, but the one who said that the label didn't want their stuff released in the US, when I asked about why, they actually said because the label doesn't think it's worth it. And I'm like, so you're gonna block it? And I'm like, yeah, because like nobody's gonna buy it over here anyway. We're not releasing the music here anyway, so why put the video?
One other thing that happened too was the YouTube Red.
Oh yeah, YouTube Red.
That
Yeah,
really changed
and then
marketing.
you have to do agreements, and some of the Japanese companies don't want to make concessions to the agreement, so they just like screw it, we're not doing YouTube anymore. But Pony Canyon has never been on YouTube. Yeah.
I think another part of why Korea doesn't block like Japan does is because there's a lot of Koreans living here in the United States, and they buy those CDs and DVDs here. K-pop, yeah, you can see it on YouTube and stuff, and you can listen to the songs on iTunes and everything. But K-pop albums also bring special things. They bring like a special photo album. So if you're a hardcore fan, you will see the special photo album in the CD. And there's a big Korean community here in the States, in Seattle, LA, New York. So they will buy that stuff here. There's a bunch of K-pop stores right down the street from my house.
Yeah.
And they sell stuff on a daily basis. They sell fan merchandise, whatever. They have everything. Pillows, t-shirts, hats, necklaces, keychains. That they put there, so the person, when they buy the CD, they end up buying stuff like fan merch, K-pop.
And like groups like AKB48 can still sell 1 million CDs in Japan. But part of the reason fans buy those million of CDs is because there's stuff that comes with them, be it photos or be it most especially handshake tickets, photo tickets, what have you, like lottery tickets for other events. And you wouldn't buy those in the US because, you wouldn't be able to participate in that. So there's a huge difference about why you buy it. And obviously people in the US don't buy CDs anymore. And in Japan, you still do. I mean, like I buy CDs, but how many of us in the audience still
Okay, how many buy?
No, okay, let's do that. How many of you still go out and buy CDs, like legitimately? See, it's very few.
I'll buy vinyl.
Yeah, okay, vinyl's different. Like vinyl, I'll put on the shelf.
And I will admit, I just purchased a Perfume record on vinyl, and it sounds the same, but I don't care.
When I came back from Japan, I had this huge stack of CDs I bought while I was there, and I'm like, yeah.
Do we have any more questions?
But
You kind of touched upon it a little bit earlier, discussing the promotional cycles and things like that. This is actually going to be more of a question regarding both J-pop and K-pop. For me as a fan of music as well, I love music in general, and like here in the United States, when we talk about music, oh, when we talk about a band or artist, we love this music, oh, we love that, we love their album before that too. Why does it seem like when you talk about like K-pop or J-pop act in general, they don't seem to like talk too much about the previous promotional cycles, no matter how good it was. There seems to be a little bit of a stigma of, oh yeah, that stuff's old, like why are you still listening to it? Like, I like their new stuff. You know, like, why does that seem like a bad thing?
I think that part of it is the general level of sustained activity. A big difference between Japan and Korea here is that the system of releasing regular singles that eventually feed into an album is still alive and very well in Asia. Not here anymore. It used to be that way here too. A band would release several, records, and then they eventually release, like 45s, and then they eventually release the full album. But then what happened here in the 90s, basically, is when it sort of started, is that the whole album just drops at once.
Exactly.
And you might get one single and one video associated with the album. If it's really successful, they'll go back and they'll do more.
Yeah.
I think it's changing now that a lot of artists are seeing music video, it's sort of a revival of music video as a promotional tool. But, especially in Korea, it's all about the mini album, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, there's constant content being generated, so that older stuff quickly fades into the past, because there's always something new every 3 or 4 months.
But the idols K-pop idols will always sing their old songs at the concert. They always will. They always do. They always do. They always bring it back because the nostalgia, and the feelings and stuff. So they always bring it back. So
Big Bang concert.
Big Bang did that. I died. When they sang Lies and they sang Haru Haru, I died.
Yes.
I died like 2 times.
J-pop artists do it too when they perform their old stuff.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing about it though, I don't know if Korea works the same way, I don't really know this, but in J-pop, a lot of the times you release a CD, and when it's sold out, usually it's sold out. And reprintings aren't as common unless you're really huge. And reissues are usually a whole other issue. Like maybe a few years later, they might re-release it, like at the 10th anniversary or something like that. But you don't have the kind of thing you have in the US, or I don't know if it still happens to the same degree, but there's like a constant print cycle.
Yeah,
for a
you
lot of
can
these
find
CDs.
older stuff. No,
Yeah,
you
that
can
doesn't happen
find,
so much as in Japan.
you can find older stuff in K-pop too. They
Yeah.
still print
In
stuff.
Japan, a lot of times it's like, okay, we're moving on to the next one. We're sold out, it's gone forever kind of thing.
Okay.
Yes.
older generation idols still sing the idols.
Yeah, they still do their old stuff.
They need songs and stuff for fans. But as you are artists,
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we have to wrap it up. They have a new panel coming after us. But thank you so much for coming. We hope you liked it. We hope you had